Hello, my economists. Now what we're doing is the Keynes and classical video. If you look into your template, you're going to find that there's a particular Keynes versus classical interpretation of the policy. I have mine filled out here so you get a feel for it. I think you'll find a very useful comparison chart here. So I'm going to hit Control and follow that link that's from your template and from the assignment. And here we have what classical economists say and what Keynesian economists say. As you review this particular website, you're going to see that all sorts of things regarding fear or trust, proponents, politics, quotes, and who's right, what's the downside of that perspective, what's the upside, what are their thoughts on private property, free choice, way of change, views of war, means of control, and so forth. You're going to be able to get the voice of the Keynesians and the voice of the classicals. Essentially, the classical perspective is in favor of individual freedom and in market mechanisms. The Keynesians are in favor of government control and of government policies answering the three big economic questions. What are we going to make? How are we going to make it? Who are we going to make it for? The classicals say whatever the market says, whatever the market says, whatever the market says. And the Keynesians say whatever the government says, whatever the government says, whatever the government says for those three questions. Now, let me show you how I filled out this chart here. So if we go to the question about RNs must have a BSN as a law, that's that one aspect of the policy. Another aspect of the policy is that out-of-state nurses without their BSN who have been licensed for at least 10 years are prevented from working in New York State. Another policy implication of this policy that I analyzed was that candidates who are poor or who don't have time or support, they would be forced out of the nursing profession. And then also, what does the policy itself as written? What's the opinion? So the Keynesians are in favor of the policy. It's a government policy that maintains the government power structure over individual freedom and choices. Whereas the classical economist is opposed to this BSN in 10 policy because they say that if the market demanded people to have better educations, then people would get better educations. And some nursing jobs don't need to have a bachelor's degree. Other nursing jobs are rewarded for having them. So the market would automatically reward people or allow people to get the education and training they wanted. That's the classical approach. That's what the market would determine how much education a person would have, so the classicals would be opposed to the policy, whereas the Keynesians are in favor of the policy. A quote from the Keynesians: "Let the government make the rules, and then nobody has to worry about making the wrong decision." And the classical quote is, "If it's such a great policy, why do we have to be forced to do it? After all, if you can't persuade someone to do it, then it's probably because it's not in their own best interest, right?" So in the government, any law is government force. Using force, jail and seizure of properties, and removing the means of support for a person through the government rules. So that's why the classical and Keynesians can't reconcile their differences because they're unreconcilable. Thank you.